Ladies and gentlemen, it's week 5. We got games tonight. It's Thursday. We're recording this. I'm Scott Russell. Got Zach Barnett, John Bryce, Doug Samuels, college football experts. This is amazing. We're week 5. Pretty big game in the SEC. Georgia, Alabama. I don't know. We'll talk about that one in a little bit. Army and Navy are undefeated. Army's got Temple tonight. I'm not going to talk about that because Army's going to win easily. Moving on. Friday night football. Virginia Tech, Miami, and Washington, Rutgers. I think Washington, Rutgers is going to be a great football game, to be honest. Virginia Tech, can they play with Miami? Any thoughts, guys?
Well, they have to. I mean, this is really their season, honestly. I know it's early on, but they've been arguably one of the biggest disappointments in college football thus far. Put them alongside Kansas with maybe what was expected versus what has been reality. Miami, to Zach's credit, I think is the absolute clear class of the ACC, would not only be that ACC champion right now, I believe, but would be very much deserving of a top 4 seed. So this is really everything on the line for Virginia Tech based on the expectations with which they entered the season.
To answer your question, no, I don't think Virginia Tech can play with Miami. Miami so far has toyed with its opponents, and one of the treats of the season has just been watching how casually Cam Ward goes out and just dominates his opponents. And I expect Miami to toy with Virginia Tech as well.
No way. Close game.
I like Miami to win by 14, 17. I think Miami's pretty good. I think Washington Rutgers is a great football game. Anybody see that any different?
I think Washington is a shell of the team that they were last year, as we've discussed before here. And I think, I can't even remember what year it is for Schiano 2.0 at Rutgers, but I feel like this is a game where having some roots down a little bit is gonna pay off for Rutgers. So it's weird to say that's a Big Ten game, Big Ten matchup, but I think Schiano and Rutgers handle business, and they're just they'll be more physical than Washington is across the board.
It's going to be interesting to follow throughout the season trend of these cross-country conference games. So far, we saw Cal go to Florida State and lose the game, but they should have won. Stanford went to Syracuse and won. Obviously, you'd figure it'd be a huge advantage for Rutgers being at home, but this is just something to monitor throughout the season and probably will be a bigger advantage as the season goes along, I assume.
I can't believe you. I mean, when you think of the Big Ten, you think about New Jersey and you think about Seattle. So absolutely. I don't understand your point, Doug, that this is somehow not the quintessential Big Ten game. But Schiano 3-0, his best start at Rutgers. I think the Scarlet Knights' physicality is the difference in this contest. But I do think it will be. I do think it'll be a really good game. But I think this is the win that puts Rutgers in the top 25 next week. And I don't know the last time Rutgers was in the top 25, but I suspect it was during Schiano 1.0.
I personally think Rutgers wins. I'm not sure it merits top 25, but who knows? Zach, you track those should have won?
Sure, I can. Yeah.
Should have won. Moving right along. All right, so Saturday, let's start with the big one. We got Georgia, Alabama. It's kind of a big game. I don't know. What do you guys think? I heard Trump's coming to town, for whatever that matters. Give me some thoughts, guys.
I think this is the biggest game of Kalen DeBoer's life. I say that having known he's played for 4 national championships. He's coached for another within this calendar year. But none of those were at Alabama. None of those were in the SEC. It means more. This could set Alabama up. I mean, the Saban dynasty began in earnest when he beat Georgia in 2008, and this could do the same. This could be the same type of springboard for Kalen DeBoer here in just Game 4. I heard Joel Klatt on the radio here in Dallas lay out the case, and I think he's right that the loser of this game is probably out of the SEC championship game, considering the competition elsewhere and how easy Missouri and Texas's schedules and Ole Miss's to an extent seem to be. All the pressure is on Kirby in this game. This is game like 115 for him or something like that versus Game 4 for Kalen. And having said that, I like Alabama to win.
Doug, I'd like to hear your analysis before I try to convince Zach to put his thinking cap on by turning his hat around because it's not the biggest game of Kalen DeBoer's life.
No, yeah, I think I think for Kirby Smart, this is every championship caliber team has a game they're slow or they underachieve in, and they snap out of it and get back to rolling. I think that was Kentucky, and that was Kentucky for Georgia and Kirby Smart's squad. And I just think the scale tips a little bit in the favor of the guy that's considered the top coach in college football right now. And when I say that, I mean Kirby Smart and not Kalen DeBoer, because I think there's a conversation to be had there. But just again, he's got roots there. These are all his guys. He's got his culture in place, as opposed to a really good football coach that's played or coached in some really good games, some really big games. But I think you got to tip the scales in Kirby's favor here.
If this was the 4-team playoff era, I could entertain an argument, however wrong it was, that it might be Kalen DeBoer's biggest game. But as you already alluded to, Zach, he's played for 4 national championships. He beat Texas in the semifinals of the CFP last year. This is by no means the biggest game of Kalen DeBoer's career. We've not even flipped the calendar to October, and there's still plenty of runway for the Crimson Tide to make the college football playoffs if they happen to lose this game. There's still plenty of runway for the Crimson Tide to host a college football playoff game and then end up in a round 2 game against either the Big 12 or the ACC champion, most likely, in which case Alabama would not be deterred by that. So it's a huge game. It's the game of the year this week. We'll see if we have a bigger one later in the regular season. I like Georgia's depth. I like Georgia's defense. And while I'm not as enamored with Carson Beck as some other people, I do think his ability to not turn the ball over will be a deciding factor in this contest.
3 letters, John. You wouldn't appreciate, Doug wouldn't appreciate, only Scott and I appreciate living down here. 3 letters, SEC. Everything that happens before you join this conference is just prelude. Georgia's not been explosive. We saw that against Kentucky. Landon Humphreys is going to miss this game. Alabama's weak link so far is the secondary. I question whether Georgia can take advantage of that. I think the best player on the field that's going to touch the ball the most is Jalen Milroe, and I think he makes the plays necessary for Alabama to win the game.
Yeah, I think Alabama's been a little dinged up on the offensive line. I mean, I know they expect Caden Proctor and all those guys to go, but Georgia's had a tougher road test thus far playing at Kentucky, even though we know my thoughts there. But Wisconsin's dreadful, and Alabama just sort of had its way with them. So I still like if this was a neutral site game, I'd pick Georgia by 10. I'm still picking Georgia to win, even though it's at Bama.
Zach's love for Texas is well known. The way he talks about the SEC, they've been part of the conference for more than 6 months. So
well, he's clearly got an angle there to not acknowledge that Kalen DeBoer's win over Texas in the semifinals was much bigger than this game coming up this weekend.
I think Alabama wins the game. I've been impressed with what Kalen DeBoer has kind of got things. I can see things just building and building and building. And I like his staff a lot, and some of those players. He's got some playmakers. I had to chuckle. Zach was like, I mean, the loser of this, might not even be, an SEC championship game. The soft schedules: Texas, Missouri. Texas, I got you. Missouri, Ole Miss. He's like, Ole Miss got nothing. Ole Miss has to go at South Carolina, at LSU. I'm not gonna say they don't win these games. They got to go at South Carolina, at LSU. They got Oklahoma. They go at Arkansas. They got Georgia, at Florida, and Mississippi State. Oh, it's like butter. Oh, What a country! What a country!
Zach's used to the Big 12, so you play one tough game and you get by it, and you think your schedule is gravy. So he's not indoctrinated to full SEC resident status as you and I are, Scott.
I love it. All right, so that was a wonderful conversation. All right, so I'm on the Tide. Zach's on the Tide. JV's got the Dogs. Doug?
Dogs.
Okay, straight up. We'll see how it goes, boys.
All
right, let's talk. I'm going to kind of walk us through 11 a.m. all the way through night game, late night games. Late night games are going to be phenomenal. All right, early morning. Kentucky's at Ole Miss. Does Kentucky scare Lane in this one at all?
No.
Good talk.
For a half. Kentucky's defense.
For a half, Kentucky can't score. Kentucky can't score.
Moving right along. Minnesota and Michigan don't score much either. How's that one play out?
I think Michigan can win that game without throwing a pass, probably. And looking at what Sharon Moore, how he prefers to win, that may be a very likely possibility.
Yeah, I mean, look, Minnesota is the team that opened its season at home on a Thursday night with everything going for it against North Carolina. Could not win that game. And, we've seen that North Carolina is not all that. Michigan due for a little bit of a letdown, but I think Michigan's physicality, Alex Orji's running the ball. I like Michigan in this game, and I think Michigan wins pulling away in the second half.
I agree. With Davis Warren, this would be a much more competitive game than it should be, but Michigan leans on Minnesota enough to pull away.
Oklahoma State goes to Kansas State.
I like K-State here. K-State had a tough game last week at BYU. I mean, when you go on the road to Provo at night, that's like you're basically leaving planet Earth. So what happens there doesn't really apply moving forward. Oklahoma State's highly overrated, and I like K-State to win at home.
BYU is going to Baylor. Big game for Dave Aranda. Can he fight off BYU?
He can, but I expect BYU to win this contest, even though I think I saw the Vegas odds makers have Baylor as maybe a 1.5 point favorite, which basically tells you it would be BYU on a neutral site or in Provo, which is lovely, by the way, Zach. Don't judge it till you go. It's outstanding.
It's just it exists outside of space-time.
I know. I'm joking, but it is pretty freaking awesome. Yeah, I like BYU's physicality. They've rediscovered their throw game. They're playing really well, but they're back to Kalani's style of play, which is really getting after people on both lines of scrimmage.
I like BYU in there too. Very interesting game. Maryland goes to Indiana. Cignetti planted his flag. He claimed his claim. He staked it all. Day one in the basketball arena. To him, this is just another game. He just rolls this one out because he's got his eyes down the road. Maryland come in, got a shot at knocking off Indiana?
I don't think so. I think Indiana's playing good football right now. It seems like they have fully bought into the Kurt Cignetti vision and swagger that it's weird to say Indiana football and swagger in the same sentence, but that's exactly what he's brought. They've got Maryland this week, Northwestern next week, and you win those two games, you start off 6-0. Then you head into a big game with Nebraska 2 weeks down the road. So this week's a big one. I think Mike Loxley and those guys, the Terps, will put up points. But Indiana's been really stingy on defense. They haven't given up more than 14 points in their first 4 games. So they're playing a great brand of football right now that I see continuing through the next 2 weeks, leading up to a huge matchup with Nebraska.
I completely agree with Doug. Plus, Indiana was able to go on the road and win at some obscure school out in Los Angeles. I don't know if you've heard of it, but got a really nice win at that unnamed program. I just love the speed that Indiana is playing defense. I've watched them a little bit more because my exponentially better half is an IU grad, so she insists on such torture from time to time. But Sig is the real deal. He went out and got a really good support staff. They upgraded that roster in a hurry. They're not done upgrading it. They're actually recruiting in some deeper waters than IU football is accustomed to, thanks to Matt Wilson and all those guys. So I like the Hoosiers in this game. I like the Hoosiers in a much closer game next week. And if he gets them to 6-0, I know they've still got some meat on the schedule. It's going to be hard to dissuade me from considering Kurt Cignetti the Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Long way to go. Coaching matters. He's done a great job. Bill O'Brien's also done a great job. Kind of BC was nothing. BC had no identity under Hafley. BOB's got a quarterback. So speaking of quarterbacks, Tyson Helton is a quarterback whisperer. He's got he's in flux at the quarterback position. But Helton's going up to BC, Western Kentucky. Could WKU shock them, or BC's just got too much grit up there?
I think BOB has got Boston College rolling right now. I think the campus has really embraced them. they didn't play great against Michigan State. I really like Michigan State's game plan going against a really good, well-coached offense that Bill O'Brien's got. But they're going to be able to score points. They're going to play stingy defense. And, Western Kentucky, I don't think they scored 0 against Alabama in the opener. They've scored 31, 49, and 26 in their wins. But when you think of Western Kentucky, you think of throwing the ball all over the place and putting up a bunch of points. And that's kind of their recipe for success. And I don't see that happening against Boston College.
Yeah,
agree.
Boston College.
Zach's our arbiter of should-have-win games, and he said Northern Illinois should have beat Buffalo. They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Illinois is going to NC State. I would argue they should win this game. Does Northern Illinois beat NC State and Raleigh?
I think
Northern
so.
Illinois is a better team. Illinois is a better team. NC State has been horrendous top to bottom so far this season. I know they were competitive with Tennessee for a little bit, but that's their best accomplishment so far, competitive with Tennessee for a half. I think Northern Illinois wins the game.
I think NC State wins it because, once again, it's a season on the line, plant your flag. Like I talked about with Kansas and Virginia Tech, you're talking about a true extreme spiral if the Pac don't find a way to win this. That loss last week is going to haunt NIU, and I think it haunts them on into this week, and the Pac find a way.
Zach, as arbiter of all things, should have won. Should Tulane have beaten K-State earlier in the season?
No, the committee rules that K-State was the proper victor of that game.
All right, moving right along. Really good ball game. Group of 5. This is some elite stuff. South Florida, who has been really good, just couldn't get over the hump versus 2 big boys. They're in New Orleans playing Tulane, 11 a.m. Both teams got some dog in them. Anybody see anything interesting there?
This
is. Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I just hope South Florida isn't as banged up as maybe they should be after coming off games against 2 really quality opponents. I think Vegas has Tulane at like -5 right now. So I think Alex Golish, as long as they're not super banged up, gets things back on track. So I'm taking South Florida in this one.
I'm on the way.
I agree with Doug.
I'm a hometowner.
Yeah.
All right. Texas State, Sam Houston. Zach, any quick thoughts on that one?
This is a meeting of the best group of 5 teams in the state of Texas, which is now includes like 7 schools. So this is a long simmering FCS rivalry that moves up. Sam Houston wasn't one of those teams that a lot of people thought is going to be better from 23 to 24, and so far they have been. Having said that, I like G.J. Kinney and the Bobcats to get the win.
Wisconsin USC was pretty exciting preseason. They're both coming off a couple of beat-up games. Wisconsin USC, JB, got any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, USC has a no-shame loss at Michigan, even though that Michigan team isn't remotely what it was a year ago. But this is a big game for USC to show that it can answer the physical bell that is life in the Big Ten. And if USC loses this game, then you start talking about another team whose season is on the cusp of unraveling. But I like the Trojans to get it done in this game. I'm surprised. Much like Doug, I had Wisconsin along with Auburn. So full disclosure here, I sucked out loud on my preseason bold predictions. But full disclosure here, like I'm just really disappointed in Wisconsin and what they've been able to do.
Yeah, I think Phil Longo and that offense have been dealt some tough blows in their first 2 years. Tanner Mordecai, year 1, had a bunch of injury issues. His spring game was horrendous that first year. And then they get Tyler Van Dyke and sky's the limit. And then he gets hurt early in the season. So the Phil Longo era has been derailed by injuries to key players. And so far they haven't found a way to overcome that. I mean, only scoring 28 against Western, 27, I think, against South Dakota, and then only getting 10 against Alabama is not the way you wanted to start year 2.
All right, JB, South Bend, Louisville's coming to town. Just an enormous game, really, for Notre Dame. But I think Louisville might shock them. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's a juncture point game for Marcus Freeman. We talked about it going into the season. I said at the time, Texas A&M was hands down the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's career. I said if he wins that game and Notre Dame wins that game, then Marcus Freeman will get to coach in an even bigger game. Well, this would have been that even bigger game after the win at A&M. But now it's magnified even more because of the inexcusable loss to Northern Illinois. And that's not taking anything away from the Huskies. They whipped Notre Dame that day, even to only win by 2 points. And they outcoached them. They outplayed them. They out-executed them. But this was a Louisville team that really laid it to Notre Dame last year under the lights in Louisville, a night game. I was talking to Chip Long on the field before that game last year, and he felt they really, in the words of Charlie Weiss, if I may paraphrase here, he felt last year, and that coaching staff felt last year, they had a decided schematic advantage against the Irish, and then they went out and proved it. Tyler Schuff, the quarterback from Texas Tech, is operating at a higher level, I think, than even Plummer did a year ago, and Plummer riddled the Irish. So this is, this hands down, it's not hyperbole. This is another game that makes or breaks a team's season, and Notre Dame's season is over in a lot of ways if the Irish don't find a way to win this. They're bringing back Lou Holtz this weekend. They're supposed to have a couple of dozen members from their 1988 national championship team, their last national championship team. There's tremendous pressure on the line this week. I've even heard that Marcus Freeman's been replaying last year's Louisville game on all the TVs in the locker room in Notre Dame all week. So we'll see what the response is. Oh, and it's supposed to be the Irish wear green out game.
I don't feel like we know who Notre Dame is nationally right now. The Texas A&M game was should have been a great omen for a great season, and then you lay a goose egg against Northern Illinois, and you blow the doors off Purdue 66-7. Then you struggle with another MAC program in Miami of Ohio last weekend. So if there was an award for the most puzzled or frustrated fan base, I think Notre Dame would be at the top of that list.
Gentlemen, we're 22 minutes in, and we've reached the point where if I had a cold beer, I'd probably crack it. Because, Zach, I'm going to hand things off to you and ask you to discuss Oklahoma-Auburn.
I've been waiting for this moment. So isn't the question of this game not who wins Saturday, but who Hugh Freeze assesses wins most out of 10 2 days after the fact? It's a battle between teams that are disgusted with their quarterback play. Hugh Freeze lit his quarterbacks on fire, drove the bus over them on Saturday, even during the game. And then Oklahoma obviously benched Jackson Arnold. Brent Venables was plainly disgusted with his the coaching top to bottom on the offense. So they handed things over to a 190-pound true freshman and Michael Hawkins, who gave Oklahoma a spark in the second half against Tennessee when Tennessee was just offensively just trying to not lose the game. I think that they'll be better. His ability in the run game, he's making clear decisions so far. They're going to simplify things for him offensively. I think the best individual unit in this game is the Oklahoma defense. So I think Oklahoma does enough to win this game, something like 20-17.
I can't explain why, but I think Auburn Tigers find a way here. I think Auburn, other than the turnovers, which is a very big deal, Auburn can move the ball. I think Oklahoma's in a bit of disarray. I think it's a very close game, but I think Auburn finds a way at home. He was one of those guys that just
similar to what JB was saying earlier. The bottom drops out for whoever loses this game.
Yeah, but especially so for Auburn. Again, you're exactly right. It is. You're in free fall because I think if Oklahoma loses this game, do they have a week off and then play Texas? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So they're not winning that game. I don't care what recent history says. I don't care how much Zach has always been a closet SEC fan. Oklahoma is not winning this game in a quintessential SEC matchup in 2 weeks. So it's another juncture point, plant your flag game for both teams. You can salvage a lot of season. For the victor, you're really in trouble. And the heat's already on Hugh Freeze down on the plains with some disappointment this year.
I can make just a mention of a case that Oklahoma's in a worse spot than Auburn with a loss. You have the Texas game later on this season. Oklahoma still has to play Ole Miss, LSU, Missouri, and Alabama. along with a losable game against South Carolina. Like, if they lose this game, they're going to come away thinking that they're not making a bowl game. And the September was supposed to be about finding identity for a new coordinator, new quarterback, new offensive line, and they're no closer now than they were on day one of fall practice.
And as a quick refresher, as Zach and I know, because we were at those DFO meetings in Frisco, and the SEC DFOs were preparing to exit those meetings and go back and remind all of their coaches and all their administrators and support staff, if you're in the SEC and you don't make the college football playoff, the absolute best bowl game you can make is the Citrus Bowl. Neither Oklahoma nor Auburn is going to the Citrus Bowl. So you've got a whole lot of tough reality ahead of you, particularly for the loser of this game.
Staying in the SEC, fascinating matchup. Bobby Petrino going to A&M. Both teams are 3-1. Not an exciting 3-1, but they're 3-1. One of them's going to emerge 4-1. You're like, wow, okay, maybe we get this thing on the right tracks. Zach, give me some thoughts on that one.
Two teams that so far have proven they can really run the football. The Bobby Petrino effect Bobby Petrino's had a great immediate effect for Arkansas. Marcel Reed and inserted at quarterback has been the right answer for them. A&M's suddenly now top 10 nationally in rushing. A&M's a 4-point favorite. A&M seemingly always found a way to win this game since they joined the SEC. Having said that, I'm calling the Hogs.
A&M's defensive line, I think, is the difference in this game. And I was tuned into the SEC teleconference on Wednesday, and Sam Pittman noted, he's like, hey, I think we won this game maybe 3 times when Bobby Petrino was our head coach, and then we're like 1-8 against A&M. Since then, I think this is the last game in that 10-year contract of playing the game at Jerry World. So technically a neutral site game. The fans for both programs always travel incredibly well. It's a fun game to watch, but I think A&M's defensive line is the difference in this contest. And I can't get it out of my head how Arkansas melted down in the second half against an Oklahoma State team that Zach very astutely assessed 2 weeks ago really was not that good.
All right, gentlemen, we're 27 minutes in. I got 10 more games. We got to rock. Prime is going down to the bounce house. Any shot?
Nope.
Agreed.
High scoring game. I don't know what the over is. Take the over, but I don't think they can beat UCF.
Yeah, Gus.
Colorado's improved defensively, but not improved enough to stop the #1 rush offense in the country right now.
Yeah, Gus is going to hang points for sure. Really good football game. Fresno State is at UNLV. Obviously, UNLV's had quite a week. They gotta stand up though. Like, you can't lose this one, because then all of a sudden the whole program's like, wait, what just happened? The players are rallying behind the team, saying, "Hey, let that guy go. We're good. Let's see it." Right?
You've got 2 days to put in a new game plan if you're Brennan Marion, and with this dark cloud hanging over the head. And Tim Skipper, they lost that opening game to Michigan, but they've won 3 in a row. I think I took Fresno State in this one.
Initially I was thinking I would take Fresno State when I was checking over our picks last night, but I like UNLV and those wily Rebels to circle the wagons. Barry Odom, just such a tough, hard-nosed guy. I think he'll have his troops ready, and I think that they will rally around and play deliver a really gutsy, gritty performance.
Yeah, I like UNLV for the same reasons. The galvanizing effect of, we lost 2. All right, we've still got 100 of us that want to be here. Let's go win the game.
Yep, feel the same way. Georgia Southern, Georgia State, I think is going to be a phenomenal football game. Straight up great football game. Could go either way. It's going to come down to, one of the last 2 drives. Any quick thoughts on that one?
Georgia State good enough to beat a really, really improved Vanderbilt team, and hosting this game, I like Georgia State's ability to get a win here.
I'm with you. North Carolina rebound against Duke. Duke's not a great Duke team. No. They're undefeated. North Carolina is not a very good football team.
Duke plays defense, so
yeah. Duke's hasn't allowed more than 21 points in their 4 ball games this season. I think Manny Diaz and Duke get it done.
Yeah, 21 points is like 5 minutes for the North Carolina defense.
somehow they gave up that in 2 possessions sometimes. So
You win, Doug. You win.
I suspect a lot of people have not watched Ohio State play this year because their schedule's been really soft, and it's just they've been cream puff. And they're like, hey, these are wins. We'll see Ohio State when it matters. Well, this is one. They got Michigan State. They have to go to Michigan State. Should be a bit of a test. Any chance Michigan State shocks them? Do they have enough?
No, I don't think so. Boston College had some dudes running wide open in key moments of the game last week. I know it was a low scoring game, but Bill O'Brien had them figured out. I think Chip Kelly gets the decided advantage here as in terms of coordinators go. So, I think the over under right now is at like 48.5, and I think Ohio State wins by 17 at least.
Yeah, I think this is probably a 21-10, 24-10 type game at halftime. And then I think Ohio State wins probably 45-17, 45-13. The explosiveness of Ohio State's offense will really shine. And I think probably Ohio State has heard a little bit of the, oh, you haven't played anybody, nobody knows about you. They might be the most forgotten number 3 team in a really long time. I think they reemphasize why they're a top 4 team this weekend.
And Scott, you're once again right that people won't watch Ohio State, not because of the opponent this time, but this game's on Peacock.
Yeah. Yeah, no one. Sorry. No one. It'll be unseen once again. Sorry to hear that. Stanford went to Syracuse and showed up. And cross country, like, no way. They did it. Well, now they got to go to Clemson. Clemson's been playing really well. Clemson ain't Syracuse. Stanford got a chance here? Or?
I'm really excited to see the Stanford offense against a defense that is really pretty salty in Clemson. You guys know well chronicled here. I'm a big fan of Alec Ayamanor, the outstanding Stanford wide receiver. Love what Troy and those guys are doing in year 2. They probably give Clemson a little bit of a scare. Clemson's physicality and defense paves the way in the second half to pull away.
I liked Brett Bielema's team to find a way against Matt Rule. I'm not sure they have it enough against James Franklin in Happy Valley. Give me some quick thoughts there, guys.
Yeah, I like Illinois. It's a valiant effort, but ultimately a losing valiant effort. Something like 28-21 Penn State.
White out for Penn State, whatever that means, according to Brett Bielema. But yeah, I think Penn State's firepower is just going to be too much for Illinois in this game.
Yeah, I can't imagine this is the first whiteout that Brett Bielema has seen in Happy Valley, even if he wants to feign ignorance this week. Penn State, I think, showed some more last week, and I think Penn State wins this game double digits, especially because it is a whiteout. And that Illinois win last week over Nebraska will have helped further focus the Nittany Lions this week.
Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you about what might also wind up being the game of the week. Second to last game on my schedule. Third to last, perhaps. Washington State is at Boise State.
Let's go.
Everybody's talking about Travis Hunter for the Heisman. I think Ashton Jeanty is going to win the Heisman. And I think he begins that in earnest, although he began at week 1 at Georgia Southern. I think he begins it in earnest this Saturday night. Late night's a little late. That's his problem. But if he hangs 5 touchdowns on Wazoo and Boise State wins by 10 plus against a very good football team, an undefeated Washington State, I think this is where Jeanty starts to say, I'm your front runner.
I do like.
That's a far more bold statement than the preseason number 3 team to win the national championship.
I predicted the national championship. I got James Daniels for the Heisman before that. I mean, that's easy. I've already done that, Zach.
Don't forget those scrappy little rascals in Oxford, Ole Miss, that number 6 preseason team that just might sneak in the playoffs and have a chance.
No, I think you're right, though, that Ashton Jeanty could win the Heisman, but playing so late at night, you said the 5 touchdowns. That's I think you're accurate that he's going to have to score 5 touchdowns to remain in the race, and that's such a high bar to clear. Having said that, I think he could score 5 touchdowns. I think John Mateer, Washington State's quarterback, could answer with 5 touchdowns. I'm going to roll with Washington State to win this game, and both teams get in the 40s, though.
I think it's a game I can't wait to stay up and watch. Quite frankly, we don't have the 2-pack after dark anymore, really. Even though I guess this is a 2-pack resident playing in this game and a future 6-pack resident playing in this game. So I think this is low key the most underrated matchup of the weekend. Janty will get a trip to New York. He will not win the Heisman.
He's at almost 600 yards right now. And then his next games are against Utah State, at Hawaii. I mean, UNLV will be tough, but I mean, it's very possible he hits the 1,000-yard mark by midseason, which would be incredible.
Incredible. I mean, straight up. And he might have, 12 touchdowns.
But it reminds me of like the Hawaii quarterbacks that threw it all over the place. No one saw them on TV, but they threw for 60 touchdowns and they don't get a sniff. So that's just what it reminds me of. Is he deserving of the Heisman? Absolutely. Should he be in New York? Absolutely. But Travis Hunter is the best player in college football right now.
I'm telling you got to watch this dude against Georgia Southern. They're throwing the ball over the yard. They're not like running him every play. And then they got the other kid, Sire. That dude's awesome also.
Mm-hmm.
So they got two great backs. Jinty's just hanging 80-yard runs on dudes, powering over guys, outrunning them. He's the real deal.
Yeah, he's an absolute bona fide star and absolutely should be a finalist in New York. He is not transcendent like Travis Hunter.
Agreed. Best running.
I'm with those two.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the first time y'all are all wrong. All right. Arizona is at Utah. Late night game. This is the type of one where Arizona can sneak up and surprise somebody. I don't see it happening in this one, but any chance, guys?
Only if Tataro and McMillan goes off for another 300-yard receiving game. Another one of those great wide receivers and another of the all-name team this year in college football. But no, Utah can go on the road and win in Boone Pickens Stadium. Utah will hold serve in Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Yeah, McMillan's the best individual player in this game, but Morgan Scalley's too good to let one wide receiver beat him. Arizona's too one-dimensional. Utah wins.
Oregon goes down to this small town called Los Angeles. There's a team there, University of California, Los Angeles. UCLA got a chance to slow Oregon down. I think, honestly, I was at LSU, UCLA. UCLA is not bad in any way. Oregon needs to show up is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I suspect they will.
They might not be bad, but they have not played good yet this year. Like their one win, a 16-13 game against Hawaii to open the year. And then they just didn't show up against Indiana, and Kurt Cignetti took it to them after traveling across the country. I think they're a much better team on paper than they're playing through the first 3 games of the Deshaun Foster era.
Agreed. Yeah, they've had some bad mistakes here and there.
Yes.
Should we read into the fact that Indiana beat UCLA far more decisively on the road than LSU did in Baton Rouge?
Yes, you should. Absolutely read that. That's just reality, in my opinion.
Well, and I think the game meant more to Indiana, not taking away, but it was another opportunity for a first-year coach in a program that's been down to make a statement. There's still some cachet from winning on the road at a UCLA, even if most people don't know where it is. So Oregon wins this game and wins it running away.
All right, this has been a phenomenal discussion. I'm going to put out a big challenge. We're 39 minutes deep into this thing. If 100 listeners are still listening, and if you reach out to me directly, I'm not going to give you my phone number or anything, although it's on the website. You know how to get in touch with me. If 100 listeners are with us 39 minutes in, and you reach out to me and say, I want information on New Mexico versus New Mexico State, we will do an entire podcast on New Mexico State before the game, just for you 100. So I need to hear from 100 of you. That's it. That's the bar. Yes or no, get it done. Let's have a great week 5, gentlemen. Doug, good luck Friday night. And we're out.